Welcome back, third graders. Today we're going to talk about 1-point perspective with our unusual landscape that we're going to be doing. So 1-point perspective, if I had my horizon line here and I had a point here, anything in that picture would run, sorry, that's a little off, would run to that 1-point perspective. So if I had telephone poles, they would all end up being at the same height. Okay, so you get the picture. Everything runs toward that 1 point. And this gives us this idea of depth in a two-dimensional surface. Now, we're going to take this idea and have a little fun with it. Instead of showing depth from, let's say I'm here walking, this is very subtle, walking further and further back, right? There I am, way in the back. Okay. Instead of showing depth from near to far, so here's near, here's far, instead I'm going to see what would happen if I were to lay down. So here I am laying down. There we are. And I'm looking straight up. And I want to show depth from things that are closest to me to where my eye level is, and then the further away they go, the higher they go, the further away they would go, is going to have the same idea of having this 1-point perspective. So we're going to take this idea and create an image as if we're lying down on our back. And I know fall is almost over. The beautiful trees are just about gone. There's going to be an invisible dot in the middle of our paper. You can do that with a pencil if you want, just to kind of remind yourself it's there. Maybe I'll go ahead and give it a little dot just to be safe. But starting, this camera doesn't quite zoom out enough for you to see this, but starting from the edge of my paper, I'm going to create trees that are coming up toward this dot. And the further away they get from me, the skinnier the tree is going to be. So I'm just going to start out by creating my tree trunks, and they don't have to be perfectly straight. So this one's kind of crooked a little bit. So notice how wide it is down here. I'm going to start about a finger width apart, and I'm going to snake my way up until that is almost to a point. Okay, so I'm going to do the main trunks of my trees, and I'm going to do this at various spots around my picture. So it's basically like making kind of wonky looking triangles, isn't it? It's kind of silly. All right, so I'm going to create a couple of these all around my picture. And the biggest, most important part is that they start out wide and they make their way skinny. And they should all be heading toward that 1 point. I'm going to do this all the way around my picture so that it looks like I'm laying in the middle of the woods and I'm looking straight up toward the sky. Now, these don't look very much like trees, do they? They just look like a bunch of random lines, which is kind of silly, but we are going to give them the characteristic of trees in just a little bit. Okay, so I have the basic tree trunks of my tree all the way around. Now, they don't look like trees because what are they missing? They're missing all the branches and all the leaves, right? So what I'm going to do is come around here and I'm going to start creating little Y's that come off my trunk in different directions. And remember that the farther up they go, the skinnier they should get. Okay. So some of them can start really low. If you have some that are down here, you can maybe make that branch a little bit wider and maybe even give it a few more details. So you see how this shapes a Y, kind of like that. So you have your main branch and it kind of V's off in two different directions. And big point here is to make sure that these branches get really tiny as they go up. See how those are getting smaller and smaller and smaller as they go up? So not only does the main trunk start out wide and then kind of get narrow as it goes, it also will have the branches, they'll be wider down here and they'll get skinnier. If all your branches are only this tall, it would look really kind of funny, right? So you want to make sure that the bottom branches, the ones that are closer to the wide side down here, are going to be a little bit longer than the branches up here as you go up higher. So you want to make sure you make those shorter. That's an important part, because otherwise it'll look kind of funny and you won't understand why. So again, make sure each of these are a little bit longer than the others. I'm going to go ahead and keep working and fast forward. You may do some of this on your own, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to color these, because it won't fully make sense until you see all of the color on your leaves. And that's where it really starts to look cool. Little trick to the trade, if this gets hard doing them upside down, you can always turn your paper around and keep working from this side so that you can see the branches that are actually closer to you. Now I'm doing this in permanent markers so that it makes it easier for you to see on my camera, but you can do this in pencil so that you can erase if you make mistakes or you don't like what you see. The beautiful thing about trees is that they are from nature. They're organic. They do not have to fit any certain recipe. Yours can look different than mine and it will still look like trees. See, I like to turn my paper so I'm working with the tree that's right in front of me, because it makes it easier to see where those branches should be going. Okay, now I'm back to the beginning. So once I finish my branches, I can go in and add detail to my trees. Now, if I want to make these look like birch trees are all white and they would just have a black line going in. So maybe I'll do that because that'll be easy. If I don't want to make them look like birch trees, I could color the main trunk and the branches brown. Birch trees, on their other hands, have these black lines that kind of go around them. So they're all white, and then they just have these little tiny lines. And it looks really cool when you see the finished product, but I'm not doing anything super fancy with these. I'm just using regular lines to create the illusion that this is a birch tree. So don't be afraid. Try out different things. See what you want. Maybe some of yours are going to be birch trees and some of them are going to be regular trees. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll just do a few birch trees and the rest will be brown. So you guys can see kind of the difference in mine. Okay, now I'm going to go through and add some color to this so you can see what it should look like when it's all colored. Oops. Pay attention if you mix them, don't color your birch trees. Okay, once I have my trees all colored in the way I want them, I'm going to use my warm colors because it's fall and it's pretty. I'm going to start with some of my darker ones because it's easier to get some of those smaller ones in first. And this is a little bit like scribbling. So you're doing a controlled scribble because leaves, when they're far away, you're not going to see a lot of detail from you. And don't feel like you have to keep the leaves right on the branch. Space it out a little bit so that you have a little buffer zone around it. And I'll show you why in a minute, because when we add our yellow, it'll make a lot more sense. Yellow is going to be kind of our filler color, and it will fill in any of the empty space that's in between the leaves that we didn't do. So I'm going to start with red first. Then I'm going to go to orange and do the same thing, little scribbles. I'm just going to do this first tree so you can get the idea, and then I'll fast forward to the end so you can see the overall product. Okay, and then I'm going to go back over it and kind of fill in my missing spaces with my yellow. Be careful not to color your pretty birch trees yellow. You want to keep those nice and white. So I'm going to fill in my extra space in between. Now, you don't have to hit 100% of the space because remember, there are some times that you see sky in between some of your leaves. So I'm going to get that all colored, and especially at this time of year, now that most of the leaves have fallen, you're going to see a little more sky in between there than you would any other time. So once I finish that, the last step will be to go in between and around the rest of the tree. Be careful because blue and yellow, when they overlap, will make a green. So try to avoid coloring your pretty yellow leaves green. Leave those untouched. Get close to it, but not on top of it. Okay, I'm going to fast forward and let you see how this looks when it is all finished. And there we go. Our finished product should look like we are laying on our back, looking up at the sky, at our trees. You should have a little bit of blue space right in the center here so that you can kind of see the sky through the top of your trees, and also some blue around each of your trees. I kind of looked for a few of my pockets any white spots in between the leaves that I could fill with a little bit of blue as well, which kind of also aids to the idea that you can see through the trees just a little bit. All right, guys, I hope you have fun with this, and I can't wait to see your artwork.